Greetings. Good morning. Bonjour. Wow, that's an awful start. So, today I kind of decided to take a mental health day. I've been trying to get the business going and, looking into the LLC and this and that, trying to talk about accountants and bookkeepers and business plans and all the things I need to get set up and desk and whiteboard and da-da-da-da-da, all this other kind of stuff, website, blog, podcast, vidcast, and so on. And today I decided to just kind of get back to basics, to just do a little reconnecting. And I'm doing that sort of in two ways. One, I'm doing an old-fashioned sort of walk and talk, which is sort of how this all began, for me at least. The way I made my bones in the education space, as most people know, is through podcasting and blogging and social media and all that kind of stuff. But the whole thing began while taking my dog for walks, playing around with some of these ideas that I heard at conferences, in particular the ICE conference in Illinois. Props to my peeps out there. And actually using, because I don't remember whether my cell phone wouldn't do any recording or wouldn't do any decent recording, but actually using my camera, my digital camera, which was able to record audio files. And while, I don't know whether it was while walking the dog or just walking around the neighborhood, I would just hit record and start kind of talking to myself. I remember hand coding a Linux server, getting it all set up, turning it into a server, patching it through the router so it has a static address, hand coding my RSS feed, and so on. And that's how I did the podcast. And then I started doing it in the car and so on and so forth, trying to add some more production value to it, editing it, and so on. But the whole thing started just walking around the neighborhood and reflecting, just stepping back and reflecting. So I decided to kind of reconnect a little bit and reflect on some of the things that I've been thinking about last few days and so on. I figured no better place to do it than at the place where the podcast began way back when, which was in this very house in Berwyn. That's where I lived before we moved to Skokie, before kids and so on. That's the first house that Jess and I bought. You could say it wasn't much and so on, but honestly, it was a lot for us. It was a big deal. And that was also a place where I lived when, I started going through my first teaching job and director of technology and so on, and started really kind of thinking about education, where it's going and so on. And honestly, it's funny because as rapidly as things have changed, there's still a lot of things that haven't changed at all. Teachers are still struggling with the latest, as Adam Bello likes to put it, the latest quote-unquote movement per se, the latest acronym that's getting in the way of they're just teaching good things to good kids and so on. The politics is still the same. Everybody's still struggling with technology. That hasn't changed and so on. But the biggest thing to me that's changed is the way that we communicate. I spent a good chunk of last night engaged in a political debate, which is honestly a much, much nicer way of saying bickering with people on Facebook. And bickering to the point where I felt like I had one-upped somebody else, or that the conversation had devolved to a point where nothing productive could come of it. I've kind of gotten into the habit now, at least, if I put out something relatively political on my own profile, which I don't do all that often, but when I do, if anybody starts trolling, flaming, truly just baiting people, not saying anything of substance, I kindly ask them to get back to topic or to curtail what they're saying. And by the way, just for the record, it goes both ways. It seems to happen more often with people who disagree with me. But I think that's just the nature of it. If someone agrees with me, they're going to be nice and act nice. But there have been people who have agreed with my personal political viewpoint and so on that that have done so in a way that I thought was not constructive to a conversation, and I kindly asked them to please rephrase it, edit it, delete it, or at least, if nothing else, go forward and at least do their part to encourage civil discourse on Facebook, on Twitter, and so on and so forth. I really think it's a major problem. It's interesting because of all the things to get stressed out about, on the one hand, I kind of think to myself, am I just overreacting about this? But I don't think I am, because I think it's fundamentally changing the way that people think it's okay to interact with each other. All of a sudden, it's starting to be seen as kosher, as normal, as acceptable to say horrible things either about other people or to other people, just flat out call them names, despicable things, inflammatory things that I would never say to somebody's face, let alone let alone to somebody that I know, that I respect. I guess where I'm getting hung up is I feel like there used to be a middle ground between I see things differently than you do, or I don't like what you're saying, or something along those lines, and that guy's a piece of S, that guy is effing deplorable, it's the absolute crisis, like comparing Trump to Hitler, or Hillary Rodham Clinton to whatever, the worst possible criminal in the world, and so on. I feel like there's middle ground, and somehow we've lost the middle ground. We've lost the ability to find that place where we can just discuss things. And at some point, if we finally get to a specific moment where we realize we look at the exact same thing and see two different things, then can we just step back and say we agree to disagree? And that's okay. It doesn't seem like that is happening, or almost even possible nowadays in the social spaces where a lot of these conversations are happening. And because things are so volatile and so inflammatory in the social spaces, it kind of terrifies me to even bring it up amongst the people I should be talking to about it, which is friends and family. You know what I mean? Colleagues, co-workers, whoever. The people I would like to discuss Trump with are the people that support him. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd like to hear why they see the world the way that they do. And I would hope that a conservative or a Trump supporter or whoever would want to understand why people see Hillary the way that they do, instead of jumping to this conclusion that Trump is a Nazi fascist and so on, and that Hillary is is corrupt and this mastermind and the worst thing that's ever happened in this country. There's honestly, I look at both of them and I see human beings. I don't think Trump is a fascist, racist, so I don't like the person. I don't tend to like people who use the word stupid or call people names all that much. I do think he's somewhat of a bully, but that doesn't mean that he's not trying to do what he thinks is best. Flaws and all. And I could, while I don't agree with it, I can respect it at least. And the same thing with Hillary. Personally, I see some of the things that people call her out on and so on. I see them differently. That doesn't mean I can't respect the way that other people see them too. Now, what worries me, and I know I'm rambling right now. Holy cow, am I rambling. What worries me is not the fact that we can't communicate these ways, but our students. You know what I mean? The people that are growing up in this sort of environment, that are growing up thinking that this is normal, that this is the way you communicate, that you go straight with the way to make a point or convince someone of a point is to see how extreme you can take it. That worries me. I think we're losing civil discourse somehow. I don't know whether it's anonymity, whether it's things like Reddit and 4chan and so on that have kind of opened the gates for it, whether it's anonymous commenting on things like YouTube and so on that sort of opened it up, or whether it's just we're getting, as a society, desensitized to the fact that we can make these comments to people, and we don't see the reaction immediately, and so we feel it's okay. But I feel like we're treating each other, if you want to go back to the very basic premise of treat others the way that you want to be treated, I don't think we're doing that. I think we're so concerned with being, I think it's not even that we're concerned with being right. We're confusing right with proving or of demonstrating that other people are wrong. It's not even demonstrating that other people are wrong. It's assuming that they're wrong and treating them like they're idiots. It's not even idiots. It's even worse than that. I mean, that's the most polite way that I can say it. Anyway, I'm hoping to be able to figure out some ways. One of my goals here is, so right now, what I'm doing right now is a video podcast, which I may publish, I may not publish. Well, heck, I'm just going to say I'm going to publish it because if you're watching it right now, you're watching. I'm hoping to find some more ways where we can all interact together and civilly. I would like to actually bring up some of the more controversial educational topics. The one that everyone thinks about is testing and Common Core and this and that. And I want to bring them up, and I'd like to bring up different sides of this spectrum, but under one condition, and that's that we can actually talk about them civilly and we can actually model appropriate behavior and so on. I'd like to start a movement where people actually care enough to want to communicate with each other in positive ways. I kind of joked about in my last blog post and said we should start using the hashtag #BeNice. So I'm not joking about it anymore. I want people to actually step back and reread the things that they wrote and say, is this something I would feel comfortable reading aloud to my kids? Is this the way I want my kids to be talking? Because I think more often than not, the answer is no. And it's kind of bumming me out. So I'm going to leave it at that. I know the whole movement now is to get away from those long 1-hour episodes and keep things short and snappy and so on. And besides, I'm back over to my car. How do I know that it's my car? Well, of course, because you can see the Star Wars family right there, How else would you know it's my car? But thank you for hanging out and taking a walk with me today. And this is not going to be the new format for Teach42 in any way, shape, or form. The new format is going to be a little bit more, like I said, interactive. I want to get people involved and so on and so forth, and actually have some discussions, not just invited guests, but audience members and so on. It's not going to be through Hangout, because Hangout is now a thing of the past, at least in the traditional way and so on. But that'll come. That's not today. So until the next podcast, vodcast, walk and talk, whatever the heck this is, thanks for hanging out with me for a little while and listening to me yammer on. If you've got thoughts on the matter, I would personally love to hear them. I'm sure there's going to be a blog post associated with this thing. Leave me a comment, leave me a question, leave me something to chew on, all right? Let me know you're there. How's that? Let me know you're there. All right, until the next one, adios, sayonara, auf Wiedersehen, shalom, goodbye.